and welcome to the Ask More Questions podcast. Stephanie McFarland, it's very good to have you with me for this episode, and I have a serious question for you. Do you paint your nails by chance?
Never.
Never?
Yeah.
Oh.
My nails can't breathe.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I was going to ask because I've got some black nail
Love
polish
it.
because I went to a concert on Tuesday and I just felt the need. So my daughter is really good at makeup and things of that nature, and I said, hey, I'm older, I'm shaky hands, so do you think you can help me out with this? I'm right-handed, so it's not really that big a deal to paint the left hand, but when I flip. Uh, I have had one accident, and the nail polish is still in the carpet, unfortunately. So we just hide it a little bit. But yeah, I was going to see if you had any recommendations. But if you prefer to breathe, you go all natural with the fingertips. Which it's since we're on this topic, I've sometimes, not too often, but sometimes you hear a discussion about men painting nails and how that plays into the role of like masculinity. And I thought, since we're talking about that topic, that's my segue. It may be good, maybe not a great segue, but since we're talking about the topic, I was thinking about this whenever I was getting my nails painted, and then I met a friend that I hadn't seen in months and months. Had lunch today, and there was a part of me before I left. I was like, maybe I should take my nail polish off because what will he think? And then I decided I don't care what he thinks. I'm fine with this. And if anybody has a problem with it, we can discuss it, and I can say, well, this is kind of a arbitrary thing to be defined abnormal because it's just nail polish. Maybe I chew my nails. Who knows? You never know. So, but yes, so you have done some research on masculinity and like men and boys. Are we defining just over 18 and under 18 basically at that rate?
All the boys.
All the boys. So tell me about your background.
So I have a master's degree in education. And while I was getting that master's degree in education, I decided to write a thesis because I'm a teacher, and I had a class of 35 boys and 5 girls.
I'm so sorry.
It was my first year teaching, and it was a challenge.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And I remember Googling how do you teach a boy, right? And I had gone through my second divorce at this point, and so that's the thesis was wide open for the sake of studying what I could do better as a woman in regards to the men in my life or boys in my life in whatever capacity.
Okay. So you're teaching, and what were some challenges that you found? Well, I'm sorry, did you say what grade?
9th grade.
Ninth grade. Oh, good grief. Hormones and everything's new, and you come out of middle school, at least where I grew up, middle school. I don't know if I think it's called different things in different places, but that was 6th grade to 8th grade basically. And then 9th grade was, well, you're a freshman. And so you kind of think that you're growing up in a way, but you're still just low on the totem pole. You're
Very
just,
much a child.
Yeah, very much a child. Still probably interested in things like video games and comic books. At the same time, at least around middle school is when my musical taste started to like formulate that I still carry with me to my day. I'm wearing my shirt today that says metal fan.
Oh, I love it.
Just a metal fan on it. Yeah, what were the challenges that you found teaching freshman boys and the girls, actually, because you had to deal with both, but they were obviously outnumbered. So what were your challenges?
They weren't interested, and they were more roughhousey than I was expecting. They were more, they needed a lot more movement. I didn't know how to make English, because that's the subject matter that I teach. I didn't know how to make it interesting. I didn't know how to make it hands-on. And what was also interesting, though, and this was kind of a clincher in the article that I found when I was frustrated with them,
Hmm.
um, is that a few of them would write things in their personal narratives that I was not expecting. And they would share things with me because, I'm the English teacher, that were very sweet and that didn't match the behaviors that I was seeing that they had with each other. Uh,
Okay.
and so that kind of made me raise my eyebrow. It's like, what is inside these boys, and is this inside more of them? Because I had
Hmm.
a very traditional paradigm of what masculinity was growing up, and in my community, and I just it's horrible to say, but as a teenage girl I was like, yeah, boys don't have feelings. Like, what is that,
Yeah. Yeah.
even to the point that I had been on a date as a young woman in my 20s, and he dumped me because he said he couldn't be vulnerable to me, and
Oh,
I wasn't even sure what he meant at the time. Now I
right.
do.
Yeah.
But again, back to that classroom, it was like things weren't lining up.
Do you remember any one example or that stands out of something that one of these boys shared that made you really kind of question what you were, question, your thoughts about your previously held beliefs, I should say.
Yeah, it's been a while and nobody's actually asked me that question. That's a great question. Things about body image, sometimes things about sexuality, like not just identity,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
things about their home life, things about just any challenges that they would have,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't inappropriate amounts of vulnerability, but it was just, I never, it just hadn't connected before that.
Okay. You
Yeah.
said that the paradigm that you grew up with. Can you elaborate a little bit more on
Yeah.
what you were surrounded with?
Protect and provide, right?
Okay.
Men did not talk about how they were feeling. It was their job to be stoic and get up, go to work, and come home.
Hmm.
How it is. We don't, that's it. We're fine. Men are fine.
Where do you think that came from? Because my dad was kind of like that. He was pretty much went to work, come home. I grew up in a religious household, so we would hold hands and pray before that. But he would always like stick his pinky out, like he wouldn't give me the whole hand, which I something I noted whenever I was younger. That I'm like, well, I guess he's just not a affectionate physical person. He definitely wasn't much of a hugger, that's for sure.
Hmm.
So, yeah, got any thoughts on is this generational? Is this societal? Well, yeah,
Yes.
what's going on there?
Yeah, I definitely think it's generational purely because of need, right? Way back when men had to do certain things, and I don't think there was an allowance, even men to men, to have that vulnerability because you just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Generation, they didn't talk about anything. But also in my research, it was pretty typical for our generation. Even boys would stop being hugged at 7 or 8 because men don't do that. Like that's our
Mm-mm.
socially and culturally for men, especially in the United States. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're hugging your daughter when you come home from work, but just stick your hand out for your son to give him a good handshake.
Yeah.
Um, and then for our poor boys, that over sexualizes touch. And so then we've got a whole slew of other problems. It's out of the scope of my research, but that is an issue. So yes, cultural, whether it's family culture, societal culture, and what's interesting too, and I haven't delved into this as much as I've wanted to, but it is definitely a problem in the U.S. I don't know if it's as severe in
Mm-hmm.
other cultures. In fact, I've had men tell me that it's not. So I think that's definitely something I want to look at going forward. But yeah,
Yeah. With the internet, you get to hear things that I don't know if they're true and I need to do some more research. But for instance, I have heard that in other countries that they are more affectionate. Like let's say kissing, I think it feels like a trope. So I don't know if it's true or if it's just a movie thing. And that's why I'm not coming with a position of authority on this one
mhm.
and by any stretch of the imagination. But the idea of like kissing each other on the cheek,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a greeting, no big deal. But that is not found in the United States.
that's not.
We are quite exceptional um, in that. At the same time, any given Sunday, there will be butt slapping on the field without a thought, right? Which is, I would say, just about as intimate as greeting each other on the cheek with a kiss. And I find that dichotomy kind of interesting, frankly, because we might have some thoughts about guys and being affectionate or touching at all,
Yeah.
kind of like I was saying with my dad. And yet, at the same time, whenever it comes to sports, that seems to go out the window. And so it is very interesting to me that we're so um, just kind of all over the map with that. So, okay, so they're being vulnerable. And I think that's interesting that you've got ninth grade freshmen, boys, in their art, that thing, their writings, that something starts to come out and
Yep.
kind of expose them a little bit. Um, was that something that you went deeper with them in discussions with, or is it just an observable thing? Like what happened with all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for my case study, for my thesis, I actually intentionally and um, what's the word I'm looking for? Doesn't really matter. It was just very intentional.
Hmm.
Um, I taught Mark Brackett's ruler curriculum, as what it's called, and he
Okay.
is. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He is
No.
the creator of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. He
Oh, okay.
has phenomenal work. And if anybody can hear this, ask your district about it, ask your teachers about it. It is so good for our kids because it teaches them emotional regulation. So, one of the things that I have discussed with both my students and men, because that was another component of my thesis, was interviewing adult men,
Hmm.
this idea that we as a society shut down that part. So it's like, how do we one help men identify and name those feelings, understand them, and then give them ways to express them? So in my classroom, that looked like art projects that they did in conjunction with the novel. Outside of my classroom, it looks like learning how to emotionally regulate. Maybe it is writing letters. Maybe it is just being more aware and naming feelings and being proactive and having strategies to regulate those emotions when they happen and allowing them to do so.
Yeah. Interesting. Before we go any further, I would like to have a little discussion about my big question, which is, what is masculinity? Also, what is man, femininity? I feel like
Anonymity.
yeah, anemones, Finding Dory. But so yeah, how should we define that? Because to me, it feels kind of made up in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Because the more I think about it, I I really can't feel like I pinpoint anything. I know women who are strong in stature, and I know some that aren't, and the same with men. So, how would you define masculinity and femininity?
It's a great question, and I get it all the time. And the way I answer this one, it actually comes from something I learned from Ronald Levant, who is one of the great masculinity scholars in the US. But in one of his books, he talks about something called the gender role paradigm. And
Okay.
essentially, what it is it's the bell curve of gender expression. So we all know what a bell curve is.
Hmm.
And essentially, everybody usually most people are going to be right in the middle. Are there going to be extremes for somebody that's normal and natural and they're actually inclined to be that way, where some are really hyper masculine,
Yeah.
some are, and this is the straight gender role paradigm
Yeah.
that this compares, and some men that are straight are, you know baking cookies and doing things that are traditionally feminine. So I love this description because, and I always talk about myself when people ask me about it, actually, because I'm 5'11". I was a collegiate athlete. I have a low voice. You can hear me, right? I'm not some typical petite woman. When somebody thinks woman, a woman like me doesn't come to mind.
Yeah.
And so it was both comforting for my own identity and even talking to men, because it's like, we can have lots of definitions where it becomes being a good human. It
Hmm.
becomes, not doing harm to others, taking care, nurturing, protecting. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm going to go back to my earlier statement about things I've heard that I'm not sure because I haven't done the research on. But I've heard that in the past, when I say past, I mean like probably millennia, uh, that some of those gender roles were more reversed. And also, things I've heard, not sure, need to do the research, that things like in the early 20th century, my understanding is that like pink wasn't necessarily by default associated as a feminine color, and that boy babies would be dressed in pink, and girls would be dressed in blue. Not that I would know because all those pictures are in black and white, but and so I think that that's interesting how things shift over time.
Yeah,
I don't doubt that there's probably some merit of truth to those. So this is me that I need to ask some questions after this is over and go do my research and figure this stuff out about how much of this stuff is mythical versus not. But
sure.
but I wouldn't be surprised at all that things have changed over time. And I get what you're saying about hitting kind of the bell curve whenever it comes to basically society's viewpoint on what is traditionally defined. It's like whenever I was growing up and my dad, we had a conversation about what makes a curse word, and he
Mm.
said, "Well, it's the connotation that society puts on it." And I remember thinking, "Well, that's fucking stupid." Uh, so, but he's right. I think he is right because there are words that we say in English, American English, that you could go somewhere else and they'd be like, that means nothing to me, and just like flying the bird in the U.S. is different than in the U.K. where they do it differently. So it is the societal construct that we've decided to accept, and yet it's not really defined in anything but our minds. It feels like, and the same with the word that I keep butchering, femininity. Damn it, man. I should maybe I can plug in some AI and it just says my name. It says the word correctly. But same thing there, where and I have two girls and one boy,
Mm.
and so the boy wears long hair, so sometimes he gets called a girl, but he doesn't care. He's just like, people are wrong. It's not my fault, So, and the girls have, as they've aged, they've went all over. From my oldest, she's gonna be 19 soon, and she these days loves to do makeup,
Mm.
but it's not like pageant show makeup. It's kind of gothic and dark, and but whenever she was younger, she loved wearing pretty frilly dresses. And I find that pretty interesting about how over time she has changed a whole lot just within her own perspective. So yeah, that does help answer it. So tell me more about your thesis. Go into details.
I'm trying to think of other parts of it. That was the biggest part, was the case study. So what was really beautiful is the art that the students produce. Like there was one student that his mother passed away right before I did
Hmm.
this unit, and I tried to talk about it to him, and I didn't want to push too much, but he produced this little sculpture with a big hole in its center, suggesting
Hmm.
that his heart hurt, and that to me was a painful win because
Hmm.
it allowed him to have a place and a way to express himself, and that's exactly what I was trying to do, and how horrible that it was in the context that it was.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that he felt safe enough to make that because I knew he was communicating to me.
Yeah, I mean, and kudos to you for providing an environment that he felt safe enough, like you said, to open up and be able to express himself. Me, I grew up learning to play guitar somewhere around middle school age, and I wrote songs, what I would call sad bastard songs, um, you know,
I love it.
yeah, and then whenever emo music came along, I'm like, these guys, they got it all figured out. If I was a little bit younger, I'd be right there, singing along with all you guys. But, um, but for me, it was an expression of how I was feeling,
Mhm.
that I probably wore my emotions on my sleeve, but didn't really talk about it. But then I could express it through something creative, and maybe get a few gigs out of it. So that's not too bad. Write some songs, make a CD. But oh yeah, crap! I just dated myself. No one knows what a CD is anymore. Um,
Okay.
yeah. Um, so with this, what do you think about the state of young boys today?
I'm actually optimistic.
Yeah.
I think it's getting better because our generation is having these conversations and waking up.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen just in the years that I've been teaching when I begun my research to when I, finished my thesis. Now I'm still doing informal research, and I'll do more formally in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But there has been a shift, and so my main focus actually now at this point is spreading the word more for our generation, because the more of our generation that works on this and takes care of themselves in this regard and coming into their full expression of masculinity, whatever that is, and being okay
Mm-hmm.
with that, that then shows our boys what to be. Because boys don't, and kids in general, they don't listen to what we say; they follow what we do. Or there's the chance of them doing complete opposite because they don't like what we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But doing the work ourselves is going to show them how to do it. And actually something else popped in my head that I need to share with you. There's a term called alexithymia, and what it is people not having the words for their emotions. And that's a very
Mm.
real thing. And while women can have it too, it is a lot more common in men. So even
Interesting.
just building something as simple as building emotional vocabulary intentionally can have a massive, massive difference.
Okay. You mentioned emotional intelligence before. I don't know that everyone is familiar with that term. Would you want to? I mean, I have a kind of grasp on it. Would you want to explain that a little bit more so that way people understand what we're talking about when we talk about emotional intelligence? To me, it just means that you're able to keep you cool whenever shit hits a fan. But that's just that's how I interpret it. But you probably have an actual definition.
Yeah, I think it goes a level deeper than that,
Okay.
right? So number one, it's paying attention to our body cues and being able to match them to a word.
Okay.
Because many of us, again, talking about the United States and our bodies, and maybe it's like this in other cultures, but this is our paradigm. But we are very, very disconnected from our bodies. And so we've had responses that we either suppress or ignore, or sometimes we bottle them until they absolutely just are uncontrollable. We carry emotions in our bodies, right?
Mm.
Like if we have a sore neck, sometimes there is an emotional connection. Maybe that sounds kind of woo woo to people, but there's a book called Body Keeps a Score. It's a
Yeah.
thing. So, being able to identify the feeling in our bodies, give it a name, and then again have those emotional regulation strategies where it's like, yes, keeping your cool, but you do have to allow yourself to feel the feeling,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
might take a split second. When you're sad, be sad.
Mhm.
Some people that means cry. And I, even as a woman, had taught myself how to not cry for 10 years. How unhealthy is
Mm.
that?
Yeah.
know? Allow yourself, your body to do what it's supposed to do when it wants to do it in that regard without harming somebody else.
Yeah. I think I would like to explore that more within this country. Well, just in the West, just this idea of um like not crying or whatever, or not allowing yourself to feel those emotions. You're right. Whenever, I mean, I like stoicism as a concept of using it as a tool to get through difficult experiences
Yes.
that are like really super difficult, right? But at the same time, I also think that you should, like you're saying, allow yourself to be able to feel those emotions. I was a mama's boy, and so whenever my mom passed away 7 years ago, I I broke. I just absolutely, I was a mess, and it wasn't until finally my wife came in one night after I had just came home yet again after work, went to bed, and she came in and she was like, I know you're sad. We're sad too, but the kids need their dad back and I need my husband back. So you need to fix your shit. I was like, fine.
Yeah.
And I went on to therapy and I started talking to somebody. And oddly enough, we never really talked about death. We talked about me. I thought that was an interesting approach, which frankly, it worked. I mean, it just helped to just talk about some things. And I, I, I wonder about the health of our country's men because of things that I see, maybe not in young boys. A lot of the young boys that I see seem to be pretty. They're young though, because my son's young, so they're the ones that hang around him. But they seem to be pretty healthy. They're just running around playing, having a good time. But whenever I look at, say, high school age kids now, the guy that I had lunch with, his son went through a pretty rough time and still does struggle with emotional outburst and some tempers, things that seem a little abnormal sometimes. But then I don't know. I'm not around a lot of 17, 18-year-old guys, so I don't know if that's normal or abnormal. But it it makes me a little concerned because of we're kind of joking before the podcast about white guys with podcasts, but there's just been some rhetoric come out of that environment that I don't think is necessarily fully healthy because I don't think it's always fully truthful.
Mm.
What would you think about that?
You said a lot of things. My mind's going 100 miles an hour.
Okay, sorry.
Let me no, it's okay. I just want to make sure that I cover everything that you asked. First of all, I want to compliment your wife for standing by your side and encouraging you to get help and for you doing that.
Yeah, she's
Because
awesome.
I just want to acknowledge is something even in the research it's difficult for men, and I haven't found the silver bullet to identify why and how to help men until they just decide.
Uh-huh.
So just some kudos to you if that's okay, and your wife for doing that, because that then shows others who hear this that it's okay if they're still in that space where they're a little resistant. Uh,
Yeah.
Second thing um, is with these boys, it really depends on what they saw at home, because there are some people who are like, oh yeah, emotional regulation skills, that's just innate. It's not. It's
Mm-mm.
not. And if they have a father, especially, who didn't have those skills and it's not taught, the boy is not going to know how to do it. It doesn't mean that he can't later in life, but he's
Uh-huh.
not going to know how to do that. Um, and so I think it should be a concern. Like, for example, even going deeper into this particular cohort, maybe 17 to like 25, 26, 27, they're getting less educated.
Uh-huh.
Uh, they are living with their parents. They're not dating. They're not,
Yeah.
that's true. There is research for that. And so it is a concern. And I think the people that are going to fix it the most are men like you, right? I'm hoping just to bridge the gap between men and women. But there's something to be said about representation where it's like what a white man's identity is has shifted. So how do men figure out what that is now and what their role is in society? And it doesn't mean I'm useless and nobody needs me. That's not the case. But
Uh-huh.
what is it? And that's something that I, as a woman, don't feel comfortable answering. But I do say we need to look at this.
Yeah, sure. Um, there was a few, how many years back? 6, 7 years back, maybe a little more. There was a guy that I worked with that I'm still friends with today. And he was living at home. Now, he had the drive to figure out that he wanted to do something with his life. He was like working at a printing shop or whatever. And then he was like, I'm going to get into computers. And so he went and took a class, one of those. It's not like a college, but it's not quite a boot camp either. It took him a couple of years. So he does that. And then we do a lot of things in my work, but technology is part of it. And I'm close to that. And, so he shows up in my room and me and this other dude we like to go out for walks at lunchtime. So we would go on, we got a lot of space around our office. So just go on a walk and then, ask him, like, hey, man, you want to come with us? Sure. So eventually, three guys out for a walk over and over. And then at one point he says, I think I'd like to like meet somebody, but I'm having a hard time meeting anyone.
Mm.
And I said, well, you know, you're 24 years old and living at home. I mean, no offense, man, but some women might not find that to be terribly appealing. And he was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, maybe they want to see that you have enough drive and you can maintain things like bills and, stupid stuff like that. He was like, oh, that's interesting, And so over time, and he had great arguments. He was like, well, it's cheaper to live at home. I mean, housing's expensive. I'm like, yes, it sure is. It definitely is expensive, and you have to maintain it, and that part sucks. And at the same time, I said, whenever I moved out on my own, and the first time that I went to Walmart and got groceries for myself with a paycheck that I made myself, I said, there was no better feeling than that. I felt, and it was not great food. It was cheap, but it was something I did, right? And I said, it is possible that maybe other people see that kind of thing whenever they're looking for like someone to date or even a long-term partner. And he took that to heart. And eventually he decided he bought a little house, and then to the magic of whatever, this girl started working at work, and they started talking, and then the pandemic hit.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
they wrote out the pandemic together. They dated and got to know each other, and they recently welcomed a new baby girl, and they're married, have a girl, and then they're he's flourishing in my opinion. And I think a lot of that, both me and my other friend that was walking with him, I think that we helped contribute a little bit to that, which oddly enough, he didn't get from his dad.
Right.
And I find that interesting. Now, there's a little bit more to that story because he did have a brother that committed suicide, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much guilt of possibly moving out of the house that he had because he's real close with his mom as well. And so, but and I remember him telling me that they did find it a little hard that he moved out, but that's normal. My mom cried too, so that's fine. But it was just an acknowledgement that he had about like, okay, this is how I get to the next step. Or as one book that I've read the title of, not the actual book, what got you here won't get you there. Right. And so he had a realization after a discussion and some nice walks outside, and decided to do something about it. That's kind of the other thing, right? You can have this knowledge, but unless you actually take action, then you don't know what the outcome will be. Have you found in your research uh, aversion to taking action,
A diversion to taking action.
to meaningful change
Yeah.
by,
Unfortunately.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Again, Ronald Levant, very much so. There is aversion to change. There is aversion to getting help. There is aversion to doing that. And what boggles my mind, and I try not to speak on this too much because it's hard for me to understand as a very motivated person, because I'm like, and it's not just men, people in general, when there's things you can do to make your life better, why not?
yeah,
Haven't cracked that code either.
yeah. Well,
I'm not saying I got it figured out and that I'm perfect, but
mhm.
you know,
Do
as
you
a
know
single,
what imposter syndrome is?
yes,
Okay. there are people that don't know what imposter syndrome is.
Oh, okay.
So I'll just go ahead and explain it, because in
Well,
my field of work, that it shows up a lot, which
well,
is, well, I mean, you have Dunning-Kruger, right? Where you learn a little bit of stuff and then you think that you can do anything. And then as you become more experienced in something, then you start getting imposter syndrome. Like, oh no, I can't do this. Like, you've been doing it a while, whatever it is. Oddly enough, I don't find that people in the medical field have imposter syndrome. Maybe they just realize it's ride or die. But, um, but in technology, for instance, imposter syndrome shows up a lot, where
mm,
you first start off, you learn a little bit of information, like you learn to code a little bit. Maybe you learn to make a website or a web page, just a page, and add a little style, add some formatting, and you think, I am a god, I can do anything now, this is amazing. And then you learn a little bit more, and then you get tasked to do something, like, hey, since you know how to do this, do you think you know how to do X, do you think you can do Y? And you're like, yeah, I could probably do Y. But then
mm,
you get into it, and then you're like, oh no, I don't know how to do this. This is challenging. This is hard. It's no longer easy. Uh, and that's when the imposter syndrome sets in, where people think, I'm going to get fired, because they're going to figure out that I'm a fraud, and I don't really know everything.
mm,
And here I thought I used to, know everything. And then I find out now that the longer you have more experience, that you just get kind of accepted. Like, yeah, I don't know the answer. Maybe we'll figure it out. So I think I've moved past imposter syndrome, which is always a good thing. But I do, what you're talking about there makes me kind of wonder if imposter syndrome with life falls in, because there's so many things. And like I mentioned, my daughter, she needed some new windshield wipers for the van that she drives, and I'm like, hey, I went ahead and put them on you, but I said, sometime this weekend, I'd like to take you out there and show you how to do it. So that way you don't always have to rely on somebody to do a fairly simple task. It's a little awkward just because of these wipers, but other than that, it's fine. And so I'm kind of tying that into life, like imposter syndrome with life, because there's a lot of things that I wonder if people are being adequately taught um, to be able to do. Um, do you run across that ever? Do you ever see that, where people can't do basic things in life, and then it leads to imposter syndrome, which then affects how they identify about themselves?
I had never even thought of it this way, and I have to thank you because I think that is a component that I was really frustrated with research-wise
Yeah,
that I had not connected. So, number 1, thank you for that.
sure. Yeah.
And
I'm
number
just chatting.
that was brilliant. Number 2, I would have to say, yeah. I mean, it would make sense that maybe some initiation energy, not maybe activation energy is a better way to say that.
Okay. Yeah.
That is very difficult for a lot of us as humans to find. Like, even, I'm not perfect. There's days I'm like, nope, I can't do it. Um,
Well,
I think the problem is when it becomes a pattern,
yeah.
and that's what I'm kind of seeing in the research for some men, not all.
Hmm.
Some. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I could see imposter syndrome, just as an example, being a pattern that's hard to get out of,
Yeah.
and eventually, like, how do you get out of it? Failure is how you get out of it. You have to fail. You can't be so afraid to fail that you don't allow yourself to fail, right? Like, I love failure. I mean, I fail all the time. So I love making mistakes, because it teaches me that I definitely not want to do, that I can go another route. And I, I've seen this with one of my bosses, who at one point, he's a pretty smart guy, really, really smart. However, a little socially awkward. I've kind of dealt with that for a while, because I've worked with him a long time. And he had told me a story once that he had applied at a big tech company and they interviewed him. It rhymes with Google. And he was so so he interviewed there and he went through their interview process, which I'm sorry, I'm never getting an interview at Google. It's just not going to happen. I'm a realist. And so, but I'm not surprised that he did at all. And he told me that he didn't get the job. And I said, well, do you think you're going to try again? And he said, no. He said, you know what? I'm fine here. I'm kind of like on top of the world, in my position here. And this is fine. And I was so saddened by that because it showed me that he wasn't willing to take, well, one, a pat on the back for being interviewed at one of the largest tech companies in the world. That's awesome. That's great. But I was also saddened that he wasn't willing to just take a chance, see what might happen, right? So fast forward years and years to this month, whenever I go into a meeting and one of my current bosses says, hey, just letting you all know, John Smith, not his real name. John Smith will be leaving at the end of September. And I'm like, oh, really? What's up with that? And so I'm like, you know what? Don't tell me. I'm going to go. I'll go just talk to him. So I run up to his desk and I said, so I hear you're leaving? And he's like, yeah, I found another job. And I'm like, okay, cool. Um, and he said, yeah, it's a smaller company. They don't really have a huge technology presence. So I'm going to be able to go there and use my expertise that I've learned here and I can build that up. And then what he said next really shocked the hell out of me. He said, I decided that I just wanted to take a chance on myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, he had the breakthrough. He finally had this breakthrough of, I think that I can just step out and see what happens without having that certainty. And I think that he was so afraid of failing again that he wouldn't even allow himself to take the chance, even though he may not fail, right? And so, whenever it comes to all of that, like imposter syndrome and everything, I think that there is some sort of fear of failure that's um, prevalent
Um,
within men that I don't know where it comes from. If I had to guess, everything seems to stem back to our childhood. So, there probably something there. Um, but yeah, that's my thought. I think it's just fear.
I really appreciate that. Like, seriously, you're helping me more than you know. I gotta go dig into some other stuff and try to find some stuff because it's I had not even thought of that, and I don't know
Yeah.
why. So thank you.
Well, you're a woman. What are you afraid of?
I don't know.
You don't
Um,
know what you're afraid of?
I do. Let me think about it a sec. I am afraid of rejection.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, I'm afraid of some failure.
Okay.
If again, if I'm being honest with myself,
Hmm.
and I've had to work on that,
Okay.
especially doing what I'm doing and try to be entrepreneurial. It's like, you know what? There's been a mind shift there or a mindset
Y-
difference that it
Yeah.
hasn't been that way.
Yeah.
Um, I'm afraid of the dark in a parking lot.
Okay. Fair. Men, you listening? Don't do that. So,
Is that enough? How did I?
I mean, I I have listened to women over the years.
Hmm.
I hear you, women. You're afraid of men. You would choose the bear. I get it, and I understand why. Because it's not hard to do a little internet research and be like, wow, white men seem to really do a lot of these. I'm not saying it's only white men, of course, but whenever they just show up a lot, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? And I don't want to exclude any people of color at all, but I just whenever I think of like the the caricature of what a woman might feel afraid of, um, like walking alone in a you don't see us as like, oh, they're going to protect us, they're going to watch out for us. You're thinking the other thing. You're like, I don't want something bad to happen to me, right? Is that fair?
Um, that is fair, and I've had a discussion like this similar. Um, Again, I don't feel it as much as my sisters do just because I'm so big.
Yeah. Yeah, the height helps.
I mean, I've only really felt seriously in danger maybe twice in my life.
Mhm,
But the other thing that, and I might get a little backlash for this, but I need to say it. Something that is important for men and women to be able to come together, because I don't like focusing on the negative as much, because the more we talk about the negative, the more we see it. So,
mhm,
my vision for these issues that very much exist: number one, women need to be heard and be allowed to use their voice so
mhm.
that they can open their whatever they have to say and be heard. So I love the fact that you said that you listen to women, because that is going to solve a lot of the problems. The other side is that men have to feel safe enough to open their hearts, and something that women need to work on, because they have this, their tongue is their power. Sometimes we'll say things, or we laugh at a man's vulnerability, or we tell our friends. That does not create safety for men. And
Mhm.
if we want to connect with our partners in heterosexual relationships, we have to be able to do that for each other.
Mhm.
Right? So, yes, we will start to feel more safe when we are protected physically and we are listened to. And men will want to protect us even more when we allow them that softer moment when they come home or when they're at our house, whether platonic. I mean, I have male friends, not just
Yeah.
my, but male friends that I hold that space for too, and they know I'm safe.
Mhm.
They
To be
would
clear, I haven't always listened to women. This is
also huge. Thank you for
I am no saint. I would say that I had a pretty traditional mindset until probably a few years ago. I mean, having daughters really helped. I mean, I started to see the world way differently after I had daughters. But then also, I mean, the Me Too movement was big. I paid attention during that, and I get it. I know that there were some false stories that probably came out, but overwhelmingly, there likely wasn't. You know, there was plenty of stories that were just true of of women that were either put in situations or taken advantage of or worse. And um, I don't want that. I mean,
no.
my worldview is shaped by humanism, where we all treat each other, the same because we're humans, and we're top of the food chain. Well, we think we are anyway. And so I I just want a respectful environment. I love that I go to work, and I'm lucky to work at a place where that's fostered. And really, I don't really think about it that much. I mean, guys and gals, if you will. I just don't, because we're just there. We're all working. We're trying to accomplish things and build things, and it's a good place. I realize that not everyone has that, and I do kind of worry about some environments that, like, let's say my son grew up and he decided he wanted to work a job that was dominated, like a male dominated field, for instance. There's going to be a lot of sexism that creeps in there that needs to be broken, and I wouldn't want it to change him, because he's a sweet kid and he cries a little too much sometimes. And the other night I had to tell him after. Sometimes I get a little frustrated by that. I'm like, oh, dude, you
Yeah.
don't have to cry about everything. And then I told him, I was reading to him at bedtime, and I said, man, I got to tell you something. I said, it's okay that you cry. And I said, because I cry sometimes too. And, because we get overwhelmed by something, or something saddens us, or sometimes we're really super happy. And I'm like, it's okay. I just want you to know that I don't want to squash anything about you. Just sometimes I don't know how to handle a particular, I don't know how to handle it, because you're crying about losing some coins in a game, and that's not important to me, and I need to understand that, like, that's important to you, and therefore I just need to shut up and listen. And he's like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, kids, just brush it off. But, it's like, yeah, it's no big deal. But to me, I was like, ah, I feel bad for how I've interacted with him. And so, I'm trying. But I just want him to grow up and be a good kid, and a good human. And I feel like that's the best I can do is to try to model that, and then also teach him things. Like I've seen him be afraid of failing
Yeah.
at things, and we kind of work through that a little bit. It's not limited to just him, but the girls exhibit that sometimes too. But I think I see it a little more in him, um, if I'm being transparent. Um, so
You're not the only one.
yeah, okay. Um, so what's the future look like for you? Like, well, where are you taking this? Because you obviously have an interest, which is thing zero. To actually, did, did anything else spark this besides the boys? I mean, is there anything like had it been poking around in the back of your mind until you became a teacher, or was it really that strong? Just seeing it from a teacher's perspective.
I've got to be honest. Consciously, it was after my second divorce, and I was
Okay.
like, I am doing something wrong, and I am misunderstanding something about men. I've got to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I know very deeply that this is my heart-centered purpose, and my whole life has been preparing me for this.
Okay. Fair.
So where I'm planning on going, I would really, really, really like to get a PhD at some point. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what the timing is for that, but I think people will take this work more legitimately when it's my own research instead of spouting off the research of others,
Mm-hmm.
which I do plan to do. Even though I did have my own qualitative study and interviews,
Yeah.
that does qualify, but it's just a different depth. Um, I am going to continue to speak at different venues, whatever speaking opportunities I have, because my ultimate goal is to help both men and women understand men and women. And obviously, mine is more, understanding the men part,
Yeah.
uh, because I really do see us as a more unified society. I see men's role finally within the next 10 to 20 years really shift where they are strong in their identity as a unified body in the United States. And
Mm-hmm.
there's this floundering isn't going on anymore. And we can stand side by side and reciprocity as men and women because
Yeah.
that's when we're at our greatest. That's when we are an unstoppable force. And
Yeah. I I I I agree with that. My my ideal world is very much rooted in classic Star Trek. And by classic, I'm now talking about like 90s, which because that's where we're at. But not extra classic like the original series. I don't know. Do you watch any Star Trek by chance?
more of
So
a Wars girl, but
more of
Star Trek too.
more of a Star Wars girl. Yeah. Well, I mean, Star Wars had it too. I mean, they had strong women characters,
That
right?
was my idol.
Yeah, and then in the Star Trek world, men and women just kind of coexist, and they just happen to look differently. That's about all that it really comes down to, and they're all working toward a bigger goal, bigger than themselves, right? We're exploring, we're um, we're learning more about ourselves, about our universe, about technology. Star Wars, we're exploring, we're learning about defeating empires. So but the thing is that everybody was on equal footing. And I realize this is fiction, but I mean, I think this is where the art comes into play, right? Because humanity's good at two things. When you go to college, you pick arts or sciences. That's what we do, right? And so to me, that's the essence of human, is, what do we create and what do we learn, right? And so if we can get to that point where we kind of get past some of these emotional dysfunction issues, to the point that we can work more collectively as a whole, then I am optimistic about the future. Today, don't know where I stand on that because, you know, it's been a rough year. But perhaps perhaps we take our failures from now and we make a better future. And if that's the case, then that's just the tree that we plant the seed and we don't get to see how it grows, right? But and that's where I think doing work like this, doing research, writing about it, getting information out, asking people to explore the questions that they have about themselves, like me. It's fingernails. Uh, and I think that'll get us to a good place in society. And we're going to need you to lead us. So it's all up to you. No pressure.
Well,
No
up to
pressure. You,
us, community.
yeah. So we're going to put it all on you. But that's okay. Cause I'm going to share your socials and all that stuff, your Instagram, your threads, anything else you want to send me, put it in the show notes. People can explore more. And, yeah, this has been great. I don't know. You think of anything we didn't cover?
Um, I don't think so. I've got a book in the
Okay.
works, so whenever that happens, look
Oh,
for that.
okay, great. Well, let's take a few minutes. Let's talk about the book. So, what can you share?
What I can share is there is a research component, a memoir component, and then also a book for children.
Oh, nice. I like that. I love reading to the kids. Unfortunately, the older two, they've kind of moved past that. They don't need mom and dad to read. And my wife and I, we trade off. So one night I'll read to the boy, and then the next night she'll read to the boy. And uh, it is an opportunity to find some books and then go through it with him and then maybe talk about some of the things. Right now we're reading these historical books, but I did just get one that talks a little bit more about feelings and emotions, and that does kind of tie into the crying thing a little bit. And so I thought, well, this is a little bit too young for him, but I like the message, so we're going to go through it. And I would look forward to reading your book whenever it's done. So that
Oh,
sounds great.
thank you.
So yeah, well, thank you very much for for being on the show. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.